say something.
Thank you.
Right. You won't be able to turn your hands away from meeting. First, welcome to everyone, those on the live stream and those present in the gallery. On behalf of the Swan Rural City Council, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land on which we meet and pay our respects to their elders past and present. Get Councillor Moore to read the prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We beseech you, Lord, that we may be granted wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose in the decisions we are called on to make for the welfare of the people of the rural city of Swan Hill.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. I see everyone's in the room, so there's no apologies or leaves of absences. The directors present, we had Scott Barber, our CEO, Bruce Myers, the Director of Community and Cultural Services, Barn Pratap, Director of Corporate Services, Leah Johnson, Director of Infrastructure, Heather Green, Director of Development and Planning. We also have Helen Morris, our Organisation Development Manager, and Ash Free, our Finance Manager, and the most important person, Sharon Lindsay, our Executive Citizen, taking the minutes. Can I have someone move that the confirmation of the minutes of the scheduled meeting on the 16th of May, the unscheduled meeting on the 30th of May, and the unscheduled meeting on the 6th of June? Someone move to accept those minutes. Thank you, Councillor King. Seconded, Councillor McKay. All in favour? Carried. Do we have any disclosure of conflicts of interest, councillors? Silence is nil, none. Very good. There are no joint letters or readings of petitions. We have no questions for public question time, and no one in the gallery was indicated an open forum. So we'll move straight to section B of the reports. The first one being the adoption of the 2023-24 budget. Mr. Pratap, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Council with Swan Hill Rural City Council 23-24 budget for consideration and adoption. At the close of the statutory advertising period, 12 submissions were received. Submissions were formally received and heard at the unscheduled meeting on 30th of May 2023. A response to the submission was provided at the unscheduled meeting on 6th of June 2023. Council formally considered the submission at the meeting. Councillors have been involved in the preparation of the budget and are well informed of the contents. The highlights, however, Mr. Mayor, operationally, the budget maintains the current level of operational services, except where government policies have changed, occurring, or services can be better provided by private sector. 43.8 million has been budgeted, excluding depreciation, for the operational expenses, Mr. Mayor, and the capital works 31.8 million has been budgeted. It's worth noting that over a 10-year period, Swan Hill Rural City Council will spend 300 million towards the capital works within the Swan Hill local government area. Some of the highlights for the capital work, Mr. Mayor: 5.9 for roadworks over a 12-month period, the budget period; 1.4 million for the Centenary Park Nature Play Precinct; 6.6 million for the Swan Hill Art Gallery redevelopment; 5.5 million for Cultural and Tourism Hub; 1.8 million for continued development of the Tower Hill Estate; 1.4 million for developed housing in Robinvale; 0.5 million for Robinvale Leisure Centre Splash Park; 1.5 million for establishment of compost facility; 0.3 million for Robinvale Skate Park; 0.5 million major maintenance to community buildings, 0.3 million for missing links footpath construction, 1.6 million for plant and equipment replacement. Mr. Mayor, the financial management, the budget predicts an operational surplus of 1.1 million and rate surplus of 79,000. Borrowings will decrease over the next financial year by 272,000. Net asset are budgeted to increase by 1.3 million. Cash and investments will decrease by 15.2 million as cash carried forward from 2022-23 to fund the capital works project as is expended during 2023-24 financial year. Current asset will exceed currently at 30th June 2024 by 15.5 million. Recommendation, Mr. Mayor, that the Council, one, having considered the 12 submissions, adopt the budget as advertised. Two, declare that 27,563,385 be raised in rates for 23-24 financial year. Declare differential rating of 0.573017 cents in the dollar of...
rather than go through all of them, Mr. Pratap, I'll take it as read.
Take it as read. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the note of councillors that we have been involved since April in this budget process, and financial team has worked hard to come this stage today, and I would like to congratulate our finance manager, Mr. Ash Free, for his hard work and the effort that he has put in this papers, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is before the council for discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Questions at all, councillors? Can I have a mover? Councillor King, as per the recommendation?
As per recommendation.
So I have a second for that. Thank you, Councillor Moore. Wish to speak to that, Councillor King.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Much has been said about this budget, especially with respect to percentage rate rises in certain categories. However, there's some overarching factors and facts that probably put a bit of context rather than individual percentages. Firstly, the state government dictates to us that our overall rate increase across the municipality is 3.5%, what is affectionately known as the rate cap. Inflation and all of the other cost pressures that go with it, wages, materials, fuel, etc., currently at about 7%. So as a municipality in the business of delivering services for our ratepayers, we are already unable to keep up with the cost increases because the state government won't allow it. The rate cap applies to the overall rate income of the municipality and not individual categories within that. Let's face it, local government rates are a land tax. We can dress them up as something else as much as we want, but rates are a tax. The amount of rates you pay is determined by the value of your land. So if your land goes up, then most likely so will your rates. So in amongst the limits of the 3.5% rate cap, increasing property values over the last 3 years and rampant inflation, the finance team threw a whole lot of numbers into a spreadsheet and magically this budget appeared. If only it was that simple. The most telling factor of fairness in this budget is the equity across the rate classes. I'll draw a couple out. Swan Hill residential rates account for 25% of the capital improved value of the municipality and contributes 27% to the rate income. Robinvale residential, 3% and 3%. Farming, general farming, 29% and 29%. Dryland farming, 23% of the capital improved value and 19% of the rate income. As you can see, this is a fair and balanced budget. We're often accused of ignoring the basics of roads, rates and rubbish, but in this budget, there's nearly $4 million allocated to waste management, $6 million to sealed and unsealed roadworks, and another $1 million or so for general infrastructure works that councils in the business are doing, along with allocation for matching funding for many, many community projects. I'd like to thank the finance team for magically making this budget appear, although I understand it's absolutely not that simple. I thank those who made submissions to the budget and look forward to the next financial year and assisting the council officers in implementing the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably one of the toughest budgets to formulate and distribute the costs to various categories of ratepayers, particularly with dry land values going up as much as they have which contribute to some 16% of our rates. The average, but from a point of view of equity, this is what I've looked at it as. The average farm now is about 10,000 acres. We'll pay between $50,000 and $80,000 in rates, but that farm's valued at about $20 million. If we look at $20 million of residential housing, that represents about, on average, price of a house here for $400,000. That's about 50 homes. Those 50 homes will pay about $2,500, and to be sure, that $2,500 is amongst the highest residential rate payers in the state. Those 50 homes will pay $125,000 in rates, which is a good 50% more than the dryland farmers are going to pay. So from the point of view of equity, I think we've found a good balance here across the board, given that most of our roads, our 3,500 kilometres of roads, are actually in place to serve our dryland and irrigation farmers. And of course, I can't allow this opportunity to go by without mentioning solar farms. This council actually subsidises solar farms to the tune of over $1 million a year, which we don't get rates on. Valued under the they pay rates under the Electricity Act, which means it's a significant discount to what they would have if they were paying under capital improved value. It is less than 0.08 of a cent, less than 0.08 of a cent per kilowatt hour, which they effectively pay. I think it's even less than that now because they actually took us to court and got the infrastructure termed as chattels, so they weren't to be valued. It's in the local government rating review. The recommendations 38 and 39, they be brought in under the umbrella of the Local Government Act and be rated like everybody else, but it was not acted upon and rejected by the local government at the when this was brought to the powers that be. If we could get that $1 million every year that I think we rightfully should have, that takes a lot of pressure off our existing ratepayers. That's about it, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. So there are other speakers. Councillor Jeffrey.
I'll speak more. First, I want to thank all those that did provide submissions to the budget. Probably the most I've seen since, in my term, since 2016. Certainly we know that the capital improved value of dryland farming has gone through the roof. It's doubled essentially over, I think, 4 to 5 years. We looked at last meeting, I went over some stats. And council aren't immune to the cost of living pressures, as you put it, in terms of insurance are going up, diesel with a heap of costs have gone through the roof that have certainly made it a more difficult budget to put together. And I know certainly some of the conversations I'm having with people that usually have an issue with the rates is what to stop doing. I think that's probably something we could look at in our future budgets is if it is, when we're putting our budget out around not only objecting to potentially the raise and the weight of the rates that we raise, but if we were to reduce rates, what are we going to stop doing? Because that's probably a lot of people I talk to get starting to rather do X, Y, Z. They may not use maternal health, or may not use a library, but that's right. So what do we stop doing to keep our rates lower? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Any other speakers? Or Councillor Young?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to say we've been going through very difficult times with COVID and many local, national and global impacts onto every area of our society and our communities. This is a very balanced budget. It hasn't been prepared lightly without consideration of many different areas and the submissions received. I'd just like to say thanks to the Council Staff Finance Department. I'm sure they had many sleepless nights and a lot of thinking for all their hard work in the preparation of the budget. Thank you.
Any other speakers? For or again? Yep, Councillor Kelly.
It is true that we have long deliberated over this budget since April, as Mr Pratap said. Also, as Mr Pratap said, it is important that we spend a lot of time on it. I concur with the other councillors. Considering that we did receive a lot of submissions, I do think it's unfortunate that we didn't find any ability to tweak it a bit, especially in regards to the submission about acting on climate change more. I think the list of things we're doing on climate change is not enough. There is an environmental impact if we don't listen to submissions like that. It doesn't have no direct environmental impact. That submission also mentioned urban tree canopy, which wasn't put in the summary of that submission. So we are behind the 8 ball there. I hope that we can continue to seek state funding for things like local waterways, flood recovery, neighbourhood batteries and renewables, roads, electrification and other things that state government is looking to fund according to their recent state budget. Our focus on infrastructure, culture, recycling and all the other items is really good. We have to continue to work towards funding what's in our excellent community plan, and as with all the other councillors, I thank the staff for their diligence and reacting to our questions, giving us time to understand what the budget's about and how we set rates. It's great that we have a surplus, and hopefully we can keep pushing back on cost shifting so that we can fund the items that we need to on a continuing basis. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly. Any other speakers?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor McKay.
I'd also like to thank the submitters. It's wonderful to have people so engaged, and we really took a long time to consider that. I agree and concur. I'd like to thank our financial manager, Ash Free, for all the hard work that he has done, and to reassure our ratepayers that we will be working on our rating strategy this year and take all of their considerations into our minds when we're developing the next programs and strategy for our rating. And of particular note to me, I would like to encourage all the people who have opened businesses in the CBD, and that I particularly am very mindful of the pressures they'll be under in the coming year and thinking of them with our rating strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Being all spoken, no one spoke against the motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. I'd just like to reiterate the words, Mr. Free and your staff, thank you for the work you've done. And just to clarify, Councillor Moore mentioned subsidise. We don't actually subsidise, we are forced to subsidise it. Council doesn't subsidise the solar farms. Under the rating system, they must pay the rates they pay. So it's not actually coming out of other ratepayers' money. So those that are listening, don't be too concerned. We are not subsidising them. And as Councillor McKay said, we do listen to all the submissions made, and as a result we'll be looking at our revenue and rating plan before the next budget next year to see if we can continue to do this, but as good a job as we can and be fair to everyone. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Pratat.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, next one is our Deputy Mayor position. Over to you, Mr. Pratat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular policy is for discontinuation. The Deputy Mayor, Office of Deputy Mayor is now included in the Local Government Act under Section 20A, and the recommendation, Mr. Mayor, is that the Council discontinue the Deputy Mayor position policy and procedure.
Questions, all councillors? No questions? Can I have a motion? Thank you.
I'll move those further.
Moved Councillor Jeffrey, seconded Councillor Kelly. Wish to speak to Councillor Jeffrey?
Just that the Deputy Mayor is obviously covered in the new Local Government Act, so there's no need to have a policy that contradicts it or to include in the Act. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly?
Yep, same as Councillor Jeffrey. I'd just like to say that Deputy Mayor King did a really good job in Canberra, so it's important that we do have a Deputy Mayor, but we need to tidy up our books here. So if this is redundant policy, then we should get rid of it.
Thank you. Any other speakers or against?
No, I was just
Councillor Young?
going to say, ever since we've been on council, we've been talking about reduction, trying to reduce the amount of policies and procedures, and this is probably the first one that we've actually seen. So it's a good news to see that there is some reduction in policies and procedures.
Thank you. No other speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. The next item on the agenda is the risk management policy. Mr. Tapp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take this as read. There are no suggested changes to the current policy, apart from the updates to the relevant legislation references. The recommendation is that the Council adopt the risk management policy as presented.
Questions at all, councillors? No questions. I'll have a motion then, please, councillors. Councillor King, as per the recommendation. Seconder, Councillor Moore, thank you. Wish to speak to that, Councillor King?
Just very briefly, that obviously risk and risk management is significant, particularly in this day and age when it comes to cyber risk and all sorts of risks. Having been part of Council's audit and risk committee this year, I guess it opens your eyes up to what is possible and how we go about actioning and mitigating against those risks. So it's an important part of Council's work. So it's appropriate that we update this policy to bring it in line with the latest recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor Moore?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just reiterate Councillor King. Risk management, like all businesses, is a job. Council operations is a key role. Is risk management as any business. You know, what are the risks to your operations? What can come out of left field? And this is a key part of Council's operations. Risk management and the risks, assessing the risks in all their forms is a key part of the continuing operation of Council and trying to mitigate any possible damage or predict any possible damage that may occur, particularly in this day and age of cyber attacks that come left, right and centre and the various other forms. Very important policy this is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may be excused now.
You certainly can, Mr. Protect. Thank you. I'd just like to add, with the risk management, we make judgments on our own risk in a daily life. Council has to have a policy, which we have, to mitigate those risks. Doesn't always mean we alleviate them completely, but we just minimise them as best we can. All right, the next one is a fencing contribution policy. Ms Johnson.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is really just another procedural report really regarding the fencing contribution policy, which was due to be reviewed by Council. The policy defines the criteria under which Swan Hill Council will contribute to the cost of constructing, repairing or replacing a dividing fence between private land and a property owned by Council. In accordance with the Act, Council will contribute half the cost of the fence if it abuts a building occupied by Council, so that's offices and depots of the like. Council does not contribute if it's a park or a reserve unless there is an exemption, and this policy does allow for an exemption for those eligible homeowners, such as those who receive rates concessions, such as pensioners. So therefore I present the report as per the recommendation to adopt the fencing contribution policy.
Thank you. Questions on Councillor Jeffrey?
Yes, because they have been required over the last 3 years to come in to contribute any fencing.
There has not been any in the last 3 years, that's correct.
Thank you.
There's no other questions. Councillors, I'll ask for a motion. Thank you. Councillor Mackay, seconded Councillor Jeffrey. Wish to speak to that, Councillor Mackay?
No, it's procedural essentially, and it is a sensible policy, and it does allow for Council to contribute where there's an economic financial need, so that's good.
Councillor Jeffrey? Any other speakers? Yep, Councillor Kelly?
I'd have to ask your indulgence to ask the question. Is it too late?
I'll allow a question.
With the fencing contribution, we've, if I could ask Officer Johnson, we've got a lot of new developments happening. So, for instance, the development happening next to Ken Harrison, and there's a fence. between Ken Harrison and the new development. How do we go about deciding on, like, is there going to be all back fences along that fence now, or will there be like an easement where cars can drive? Like, how do we deal with those kind of fencing situations? Does that come under this policy?
Through you, Mayor, I'd probably have to take that on notice. It would depend on each individual development and each lot and what it's fronting. So generally, obviously, fences that front onto a reserve, that would not be, there would be no obligation from council or to a road reserve or things like that. So often that will come out throughout the process of that development, would be my response to that.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll talk to you another time about it.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Being no other speakers, I'll put the motion on in favour. Carried. All right. Our next report is a Local Roads Community Infrastructure Fund Round 4 proposed projects. You again, Ms Johnson.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I'm pleased to present the report in regards to the Local Roads Community Infrastructure Fund Round 4. It is in two parts. Part A is for $1,434,158, which can be spent on community and roads type infrastructure, and a further $827,254, which was recently announced for Part B of that funding, which could only be spent on road infrastructure. Round 4 of this fund actually runs from the 1st of July 2023, or opens, and that's when we can actually start lodging these projects once council approves, and all projects must be completed by the 30th of June 2025. Officers have worked through a range of community projects and road options with councillors for consideration. Obviously, all projects have merit and need to be undertaken, but this report is the final list that council have agreed for this round of funding. These have been prioritised on a range of criteria, including risk, conditions, strategic plans, and it is a very challenging process to finalise, and I commend the councillors in working through this difficult process. The final list of projects, of the total of Part A and Part B, is $2,261,412, and this is made up of the following projects: the Naya Community Centre Change Room Renewal, solar panels for leisure centres, the Lake Boga Southern Entrance Beautification, the Swan Hill Outdoor Swimming Pool Starter Blocks, Robinvale Skate and Nature Play Shade Sales, Boundary Bend Coolanong Road from change 9.62 to 11.71, and Warraneen Road Rehabilitation from change 0.06 to 1.29. This is a fantastic outcome for council and for the community, and the recommendation is as presented for round 4 of the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Fund.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Questions, councillors? Councillor Kelly.
With the, I just wanted to ask, with the solar panels for the leisure centre, is there any ability to get any, are we going to have to put in anything to that from rates? Or is there any other, you just hear a lot about solar panels for free and all that. Is there any other way to get these solar panels apart from this grant?
Not that I'm aware of, but you're right, there is no additional rates money going into this. This is just the grant money.
Yeah.
And should there be anything available for commercial buildings, we will certainly have a look at that and add to it. And it might be adding batteries or something like that.
Okay. That'll do. Thank you.
Any other questions, council?
Just quick one. These are, correct me if I'm wrong, these are untied grants, is that correct? So it's money that's allocated that council can effectively use at its discretion to fund priority projects within our plans. Is that pretty much how I'm reading it?
Not quite. Yes, but we do have to submit our projects for approval. But in the all rounds that we've had to date, I think we've had one project refused.
Yeah, so they still have to comply with certain criteria in order to be funded in this way. Thank you, because that just makes it clear. It's the grant process and whatnot is a minefield. As I don't need to tell you guys, for us and for community to actually understand that it is a difficult process. To understand that yes. Projects have to basically be approved, So it's not just, hey, let's do this one because we want to do it. It's actually got to be part of a set of criteria that gets done. So, yeah.
And through you, Mayor, I would just add that Part B was quite specific in regards to that funding. It did have to go towards roads only, whereas Part A could go towards community and road type infrastructure.
Right.
But then, yes, we do submit that list as approved today, and then the government will actually confirm.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Kelly, you had another question.
No, I'm happy to move when you're ready.
All right, well, there's no further questions. Moved as per the recommendations, Councillor Kelly? Yep.
Yes.
Second, Councillor McKay. Wish to speak to that, Councillor Kelly?
Yes, please. Yeah, I'd just like to say that this was the first kind of situation of doing this for me, and I thought it was done very well by staff and councillors to decide on this list. I think this list has a lot of merit. Each of the projects is really needed by the community, and although it's always disappointing that we can't do everything that we want and everything that community wants, I think the list here that we've chosen is very good. We've thought about it a lot. They're things that have been on the books for a while, and particularly driving through Warraneen South the other day, I totally understand why we're doing that, because the road there is just crumbling and really, really dangerous. So I've seen some of these projects: the Nye Community Centre, the solar panels, the leisure centre, the Boga entrance, the outdoor swimming blocks, the nature play at the skate park, skate and nature play shade sails, and the two roads. It's an excellent group, and yeah, I'm excited to see these projects get some money towards them.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor McKay.
It's really wonderful. This is a fantastic lot of projects and funding for our region. Our council for the community made the decision that we would spend not just spread the finances here to enable more roadworks to be done and to complete a section of road that is dangerous and got very high traffic levels. But also that's an important thing that the community is constantly saying we need to look after our roads, and indeed the rate-paying submissions also talked about having money spent on roads in the rural areas who do pay, a significant proportion of our rates. I'd also like it to be noted that a lot of the spending from this suite of projects is going into the small towns and the rural areas. It's wonderful to see, and was part of a good decision-making process by council and much needed investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Moore?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, one thing about untied grants is gives council an opportunity, and this comes into the scoring, to apply money to things that are least likely to get grants from other sources. So that's part of the scoring, and that's reflected in here in this table here. I'll just make a note of the solar panels for the leisure centres. Putting solar panels at the renewable energy at the leisure centres wasn't possible before the recent change to the structure of the running of the leisure centres, and since council taken over the payment and provision of energy for these leisure centres, it wasn't possible or for council to do that. So I'm very glad that we, along with the rest of the municipality, in our purchasing agreement with initially 29 other councils to purchase renewable energy, we are to also extend that to our leisure centres. And of course, energy is a big cost of heating pools. There's always more projects than there is money, but at least we have got, we're addressing some of those areas there. And particularly good to see some of our roads. I think we could spend $30 million on roads. We need truck-worthy roads for road-worthy trucks, and as we know, we produce many millions of dollars, $1 billion of produce a year, and we need roads that can carry all that produce out of here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other speakers? No further speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. All right, our next item, Pennell Island Cultural Master Plan. Ms. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very excited to be presenting this report and the opportunity that it proposes for council, but more importantly for our First Nations community within the municipality and region for that matter. We obtained some funding to look at establishing new cultural tourism experiences on Pennell Island here in Swan Hill, working closely with our First Nations people. We were successful in that funding, and we've had a consultancy called TRC work with our local First Nation community as well as with our staff to look at what that might look like. And the report you've got, which Council has been briefed by the consultant in the last few weeks, looks at an option of 3 different sectors on the island to be used for different purposes. And I think it's really important that we don't underestimate those 3 portions, which is the economy, so improve the economic and financial independence and create businesses. It's the healing, the spiritual healing to support our local Aboriginal people, as well as healing of country. And then it's the education, so local Aboriginal education to support cultural knowledge, as well as cultural education for non-Indigenous people that could happen on the island, or using the island as the backdrop for some of that. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. The report is here and attached, and has been gone through with council. The report does also do a bit of a feasibility overview for the 3 components. That would require some additional work to ground truth that and test it a bit more. And we are in the midst of establishing a First Nations Community Advisory Committee who are being established. That group is being established to help us review and to contribute to 3 major projects in that vicinity, being the Art Gallery, the Pennell Island redevelopment or development opportunities, as well as the Tourism Cultural Hub at Pioneer Settlement. That group should be up and running in the very near future. What we're looking to do is to do some more extensive community engagement with a plan in place, which we've got, or a draft plan. There is a communication and engagement plan attached to this report as well. And also, of course, give our First Nations people a chance to review the document and provide some input. So it's an exciting potential, longer term potential perhaps, but we've certainly got some excited and passionate members of the community waiting for this report to be released to engage with the broader community to realise some of the potential that is on Pennell Island. So the recommendation is that we're asking Council to approve the master plan for the purpose of its release for public comment and feedback, and approve the communication and engagement plan to enable community engagement on the Pennell Island master plan.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Questions, councillors? Councillor Kelly.
Ms. Green, it is an incredible plan and master plan, and I did have a couple of questions. With on page 148 of our agenda, there's it talks about some city options include for governance vision.
Yes.
I think that's quite an interesting part of this. And the options include co-management, land manager, joint venture, independent corporation. I'm no business person per se, but they're quite interesting concepts. And could you elaborate at all on them?
Yes, look, I guess we as officers see this as would be a transitionary process, the management of the assuming we can get something up and running on Pental Island, with co-management being that first. So that, if you look at that as being a bit of a growth and tiered approach from co-management, which would mean council together with some sort of First Nations body that could run, and it would be more about mentoring and helping that body to be able to manage a tourism enterprise, then towards land manager, a joint venture perhaps, and hopefully eventually some sort of independent corporation.
So you don't see it being part of the Pioneer settlement in an ongoing way?
It's always going to have a relationship, well, depending on if there's massive changes at the Pioneer settlement, some relationship, because access is through the Pioneer settlement to go across the bridge. So there's got to be some sort of relationship.
Is there private access through the other way, or is it not a common road the whole way into the back entrance?
My understanding is it's an easement over private property.
Okay, so there'd have to be negotiations.
Yes, that's right. But that's not to say we shouldn't be pursuing that.
No, yeah. Well, you'd need emergency access anyway. You'd need
heavy vehicle.
You would,
bigger vehicle access.
And can we definitely say what the land tenure is currently?
Council, that part of Pental Island, council is the leaseholder. It's part of the Pioneer settlement lease.
So it's Crown land?
Yes, with a lease.
With a lease of peppercorn lease, or?
Yes.
Yeah. And the other one was it's co-management with who? Because like out at Naya it's Waddy and but there's a dispute over Swan Hill, so co-management with who? With Waddy Wamba. It's
that's, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
That would have to be
and possibly part of this could be that we try and resolve that with historical research and etc. Because
it's a group established that becomes incorporated.
Is there a question there at all, Councillor Kelly?
Yes, there is. I did have a couple more. In the costings, it says toilets. So are you expecting to put, say on page 201.203, supply and install toilets, conveniences? Is there any toilets over there?
Well, that would be, we believe that would be a requirement for if there's to be tourism or group.
Yeah, so there are parts that don't flood that could have toilets. Yeah. And the other one was on that same page, 1.03 arboriculture, which I suspect means we will cut down some trees. So I was wondering if there's any projection on how many trees or what that funding, it's quite a lot of money for arboriculture, on each of the parts of the project.
I'm assuming it is as well, or it's
There's also in the report, there's also about planting trees as well.
Yeah, or arboriculture, it might just be the expertise to determine what trees
are safe, etc.
and what to plant.
Yeah.
Thank you, that was my question.
Thank you. Any other questions at all, councillors? I'll ask for a motion, councillors. Councillor Young, thank you. As per the recommendation, and seconded, Councillor Moore.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment to the motion with a dot point 3, please, if I may.
All right, your amendment is?
Provided to Sharon earlier. So dot point 3 is that we refer the Pental Island Cultural Master Plan 2023 to the First Nations Community Advisory Committee, which Ms Green has spoken about, for its consideration of the proposals and business planning for the proposed commercial activities. Happy if Councillor Young wants to accept that as part of the motion. Otherwise, I'll leave this amendment.
Yep. All right, the mover and seconder are happy to accept that amendment, so we'll leave it as the original amendment.
May I ask a question in regard to the?
Yep.
Sorry,
Ms Green, is that part of the engagement, cultural engagement? In any case, that's part of this. I'm just trying to.
It's not as specific as that, but
okay, yeah. But it would be included. So there's no harm in us agreeing to this amendment because it would be part of the consultation process anyway. Great.
All right. Okay.
Thank you,
Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to say that I attended the art display at the Art Gallery on Friday night of the Indigenous art around Swan Hill, and it was an excellent display, and it was well attended by both Indigenous and general community members. And I think it's a reflection in general that they're so pleased and excited with what's happening out there, and they're really pleased that the Indigenous area is getting more of a, I suppose, an image in the community. I'd also like to thank Jacinta Chaplin for her involvement in this process. I think she's been very good with relating to the community, but hopefully we can continue this Indigenous engagement, and I think it's looking really, really good because they're so excited with what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor McPhee. Well, this has been mooted for many, possibly decades, the development of Pendle Island, but in this incarnation, which has been mooted since as long as I've been here, no, 6 years, it's fantastic to see it finally getting closer to fruition. A place where we can tell both stories side by side, the good, the bad and the ugly, which it has to be as we move forward, and fantastic as Councillor Young has alluded to, the excitement within the Aboriginal community of this development, as was the case with the previous development of Pioneer Settlement, where we first sort of started and got rolling on this development. I think this has great potential. Hopefully that'll be realised and bring us all together. And as Councillor Young said, Jacinta Chaplin has been fantastic. She's been brilliant in this area in getting all sides together and getting a workable community of cooperation at all levels. She's just been absolutely fantastic, and I really need to mention her in this motion. So very happy that this will progress. I'm hopeful that it'll be really great, diversifies our tourism portfolio, and an area that is currently very, very popular by the general community throughout the state and if not Australia. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, this is just an incredible master plan project idea. Considering that the project consultants never met with the councillors, it was a bit of an unknown, and I wasn't sure what was going to be presented, but it's exceeded all my expectations, and as other councillors have said, credit goes to our director, to Jess and Jacinta, and anyone else who has had a part in this. The work of Jacinta and the other First Nations people who have worked with her on this to give their input. And also I'd like to give credit to the past elders and leaders of this community, Aboriginal leaders in this community who have always worked for these things, which are healing and caring for country and educating, being so generous with their willingness to educate the non-Indigenous community about their culture. And I think this project brings all that together and has so much potential, which it could be a real game changer. And it will not only bring about healing in the Indigenous community, but that will just flow out, I'm sure, across our nation, and anyone who visits this once it is becomes a reality, which I'm hoping we can make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just wanted to add, as Councillor Kelly touched on, this is what council does. Council laws create a vision for our municipality and things that we'd like to see happen and generate that into a plan, and then our operational staff take it over and turn it into something on paper, which is exactly what's happened here. It's a credit to the long-term strategic work of previous councils and of the staff, the Friends of the Pioneer Settlement, Economic Development Team and our Indigenous community. It encapsulates that vision on paper and all of those involved in its development. I just wanted to touch on dot point 3, which I added into the motion, that it be absolutely clear this project will only proceed with significant government grant funding. It's not something that's going to be fully funded out of the council bucket, out of ratepayer funds. So, you know, as part of that, we need proper business planning for the proposed commercial activities that are part of this development. Because as we've seen in the past, too many times, capital funded projects with grants fail when they move into the operational phases, and they cannot sustain the operational and maintenance costs. And let's face it, governments and sometimes councils don't necessarily have the best track record of operating profitable businesses. So this is a great start, community consultation, a great opportunity for the future, a great future for that area of Pennell Island and for the Pioneer Settlement in general, and for tourism in this region. So let's get it underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Jeffrey?
Yeah, just want to speak for it, and I'm really excited to see this master plan get up and it's adopted, and a lot of work's been put into it. That's been covered already. Just want to highlight, it's Councillor King briefly touched on it, that it is subject to funding, and it's some ratepayer money and some external government funding as well. So it's a master plan, and depending on what we're applying for, it can change to what we actually do. So it might be some components tweaked a little bit or modified a bit in order to get the funding and get it up and happening. So I really support it and look forward to some of those projects when they get up and running. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor McKay?
This project, you can see in the design that it's really harmonious with the landscape, and it takes great advantage of the fact that we are so blessed to have this little piece of wilderness so close to the town. So it will really enable visitors who, you know, don't have the time to go deep into the bush to experience Murray River bush landscape and the, you know, river country really easily and quickly. But they will, from these plans, what you'll see is they'll be immersed in a natural type place, which will be beautiful, and be able to, you know, experience Aboriginal culture and education in that environment, which I think has been a long-term goal from the inception of the Pioneer Settlement. From the beginning, this is really realising the progressiveness of the original establishers of the Pioneer Settlement, which was the Swan Hill Folk Museum. That really was about human culture, land and ingenuity, and Aboriginal people were absolutely included as equals and as educators at the Pioneer Settlement, and this hasn't really been recognised how progressive it was in that way. And so we're going back to that original vision, and hopefully it's a fantastic opportunity for everyone involved into the future. Thank you to the council officers who've made it happen, and to Jacinta in particular.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Right, no one speaking against the motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Our next part, we'll move into section C, the sign and seal report. Mr. CEO, this is a procedural motion. If any questions at all, council, just where our seal has been used. Any questions of the CEO? No questions, we'll ask for a motion. Thank you, Councillor King. Seconded, Councillor Jeffrey. Wish to speak to that at all, Councillor King?
No, procedural, Mr. Mayor.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Council's assemblies and record of attendances. Once again, this is a report that must come before us with the CEO's name on it, but it's just about our attendance at assemblies and topics we spoke on. So if there's no questions, I'll ask for a motion. Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Moves Councillor Jeffrey and seconded Councillor McKay. Thank you. Wish to speak to that at all, Councillor Jeffrey? Procedural. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. All right, we're into section D, notices of motions. And our first notice of motion comes from Councillor Kelly. Would you like to Move your motion.
I would like to move that a report be brought to a future council meeting on the progress of options for a pedestrian crossing at the rail tracks in Swan Hill, in line with Rutherford Street, to enable more links of River Precinct to the Central Business District.
Do I have a seconder for that?
Yeah.
Seconded Councillor Mackay.
Can I suggest an amendment?
No, you've seconded. You
Oh, I
can't
can't.
amend
Oh, radio.
What?
Oh, I just think
it's all right, you've seconded it.
just about
Just
the Rutherford.
questions in relation to it, councillor, so we can understand. Any questions at all? Councillor Jeffrey?
So we've done previous work on pedestrian crossing for Macrae Street. Is that correct? It didn't include Rutherford Street.
Well,
Yeah, go on, Swan.
in a region, so in the vicinity of the railway station, we've done work.
Yeah, as Councillor Mackay, have you had the chance to look at that work that was done on Macrae Street, on designs and concepts?
No, I haven't done a. Sorry, it's a question for me.
But yeah, I'm just trying to work out. You're asking for a report on the design options for Rutherford Street, but work has been done in the past for Macrae Street with a number of options. Have you seen that report or asked the directors around that report or what the options were for Macrae Street?
No.
I have a question, Ms Green, just in relation to that. There has been a number of fair bit of work done in relation to our Riverfront Master Plan. Where are we at with this particular part of the Riverfront Master Plan?
You're right, so it was a strong recommendation in the Riverfront Master Plan to try and establish an at-grade pedestrian crossing in the vicinity of Macrae Street. So a lot of work was done before I started, so in the early 2013, 14, that sort of period, to try and establish that and get approval from V-Line and Big Track. That was not successful, so we have then moved to perhaps an overpass. And that's where we're at the moment, and we've had some concept plans developed for that are to be presented next Tuesday Assembly.
All right, so there is a report to come next Tuesday's Assembly. All right,
Can I just move an amendment, please?
you can move an amendment.
To take out in line with Rutherford Street. And that leaves it possible to any discussions we've had in the past.
All right, do we have a seconder for that?
I'm happy to incorporate
You can't second it,
that.
you've seconded the original motion.
I'm happy to incorporate that into my
Yeah,
original
happy to
motion.
incorporate it into your initial motion.
So just
Right, do you wish to speak to that motion now? So what have you got in there? You've got, so you're taking out in line with Rutherford Street, weren't you?
yes,
Prescription at the railway tracks in Swan Hill. So in line with Rutherford Street, take that out. Oh, it's on there, sorry, yeah. To enable more links, yeah, all right. So happy with that, Councillor Kelly?
yes,
All right, and you're the seconder, happy?
Yes.
Yep. All right, wish to speak to that, Councillor Kelly?
yes, please. This has been a project probably ever since council started. It's a historical project. It's always been talked about, but obviously never progressed or moved forward. And there's lots of reasons for that. But the work's been done to gain some more land there along the river side of the tracks. And I think it's timely that we move forward on this. I haven't done an historical study of other things that other councils have done, but I'm sure it's always been thought about, and it will be really good to get all that information together, and it's really good to hear that we are getting a report on it. I have lived in a lot of different, well, I haven't actually, I've lived in Melbourne and Perth, and there's a lot of train tracks through those cities, and there's plenty of ways that pedestrians can get across train tracks, and I just think it's time that we lock in a way to get across our train tracks, to make our CBD more accessible to the river, to open up the river to us. It is unfortunate that the train line does block our city from the river so much, but we can't do anything about that. It's the way that transport needed to be done back then when we were dealing with river boats and the port, and the train had to get the freight on it. So it's just the way it is, but the more we can open that up. Currently, locals often do walk across the tracks in many areas, but it's not very safe and it doesn't help our tourists. So over summer, I walk a lot along Riverside Park and through the campground there, the Riverside Park Caravan Park, and there was an older lady who, an elderly couple who were there, and they said, we were chatting with them, and they said they'd love to go up and have dinner at a cafe, but it's too far to walk. And I thought that means they don't get the dinner at the cafe doesn't get the money from the tourist, and we could solve that problem so easily, not easily, excuse me. We could solve that problem with a lot of hard work and some funding by putting an overpass. So people love walking, dog walkers, families, it'll get the active transport happening. So I thought I would bring a formal motion to facilitate that, bringing that forward. And I think I've pretty much said all I need to say.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Just one question I'll be mindful, just looking at you, I'll have a question of you. A report before to a future council meeting, could that be an assembly, because it's coming to an assembly next week?
Yeah, I call meetings. That was my intention.
Well, all right.
Should I have said
assembly? Yes.
Should I?
This is a council meeting.
Okay.
The assemblies are.
Yep.
I think so.
Pardon me. I meant.
If you're happy to.
I meant
assembly.
a gathering. Yep.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Councillor McKay. You wish to speak to that?
Yeah, I totally support Councillor Kelly in trying to progress this issue. It's something that the community speaks to us about on numerous occasions, and that I myself as a councillor have tried to progress a couple of years ago with a notice of motion that received no support from my fellow councillors when we actually had funding for to get passage across the train tracks. And I didn't ever really think that an at-level crossing was going to be possible, given I hear a freight train twice a night currently and have done for months. So I'm very happy to continue to progress this. I think it's really important for livability. I in fact celebrate the fact that we've got a train that comes to town and gets people to and from doctor's appointments and the footy and various other things. I find it quite lovely and even nice to hear the freight train, but I also want to get across the tracks. And I think we could take advantage of our lovely amount of parking on Campbell Street and transport people over. It'll be like a mini Docklands when we get that overpass. So let's get it going. Thank you.
Okay. Any other speakers? Councillor Young?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to say, having been involved in this for quite a few years, along with some of my fellow councillors, a lot of this has been delayed by difficulty with state government departments and the ownership of that land, not necessarily inactivity by the Swan Hill Council. It started many years ago with building an overpass, which didn't come about, and then it went to the state government, and then they said that the track across should be right up past, virtually up to where it is now. So that meant that a lot of that activity was a waste of time because it wasn't going to make any difference. So then it had to go back to the drawing board and start to be talked about again. So it'll be good to get some sort of report, but maybe there should be some looking at different options rather than pedestrian to see if we can get something across. Maybe that's not an option at all, but anyway, it's good to see that it is being brought up again to have a look at.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Moore?
I'd like to speak against the motion, if that's okay, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
Given this is already in motion, and I'd like to point out the historical perspective. Every councillor in here has been pushing for this for us forever. We couldn't do anything until we had somewhere for it to land, so it took 6 years to get the Grain Corp site. Now that's a very long time of negotiation. A previous council had it coming in, had an overpass plan for near Wood Street, the 2012-16 council. They had it there. Totally impractical, not near the CBD. There's been numerous things. I just think it's already been actioned. I don't think we need any more reports. What we're saying is down tools, stop work on everything. And we've got, as we've just seen in our budget, we've got 12 projects in there that, there's everything else happening. It's already happening. Just let everything keep going as the way it's going. As I said, it's already coming to council. We'll get those options. I'm just miffed why this is even here. We all know it's all happening. I can't see the point why we're doing it. But anyway, so be it. Mr. Mayor.
Any speakers for? Against? Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'll speak against the motion, but not against the concept, because like Councillor Moore's already pointed out, I'm actually not sure of the purpose of this motion. Councillors are aware, we were briefed in December last year on this project. It was reinforced to officers that it was a priority project for this council. It's part of our council plan to link the CBD to the riverfront and Riverside Park. It's been a high priority for past councils, the present council and hopefully future councils. It was recently part of our 2050 strategic visioning workshops, which the mover and the seconder were both part of. Council officers have worked tirelessly and proceeded to do what they can when they're working with bureaucrats at the Department of Transport and consultants to progress this project. As they're aware, a report is scheduled to be brought to council next week. I had in the coming weeks, but it's actually next week. So I fail to understand what the purpose of this motion is, other than to perhaps draw attention to a couple of councillors who might want to seem to the community that they're doing more than other councillors. I don't know, but it's a massive team effort by councillors, by staff, to get these types of projects.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
And we try.
Point of order.
Yeah, with your point of order.
Councillor King is making aspersions that are out of line and I think are quite mean-spirited.
Yeah, fair call. I'd say, Councillor King, just address yourself to the motion, not to the
Got
person.
it. I'll wrap it up. Thank you. I won't support the motion because work is already in play on strategic projects, and this is an absolute massive strategic project for the council and for the community, and it's something that we've been fighting for a very long time. Thank you.
Councillor Jeffrey, you wish to speak?
I'll speak against the motion. Notice that the motion is about setting a direction of council of what we want to undertake. Now, I think it's important for any council if you're not sure where our project is or where we're at with anything within our community. We talk to our mayor, we talk to the CEO, and we talk to the relevant directors to get an understanding of what is happening with the project. And I felt that should have happened in this motion because we would have got the answers around the work that's happening in the background and the fact that a report is coming up in the next council assembly. So Councillor Moore touched on a couple of them. One of the big hurdles was the acquisition of the silos at Riverside Park. That was undertaken, council bought it, the contractor who we bought it off cleared the site. That was part of it, and that only happened November last year, the film around that time. So there's plenty of background that needs to be understood that should have happened before notice of motion was coming, because all we're doing is moving a motion to bring a report that's already under work, that's already got councils. I feel we're wasting 20 minutes of the council meeting debating something that probably didn't need to come to council, that we seriously the conversations happening internally. Thank you.
Thank you. Wish to write a reply to you, Councillor Kelly?
Yes, please. I wasn't here in December, so I wasn't briefed. This is a really important project. It's one that there's quite a bit of frustration about in the community. It's one that's going to make such a big deal to our economic and social values and factors in our community for tourism and things like that. I take my fellow councillor's point that it does seem a little bit redundant now that there is a report, but when I submitted this motion, I didn't know that that report was there, so I suppose this was my attempt to highlight the need for a report to come. I think it is worth putting things into the public meeting to put it on the record that councillors are seeking to move things along, because as we know, with funding, with grants, and we need grants to get projects like this up, they have to be shovel ready. We have to have them advanced enough that the funding is there, the costs are there, the plans are there. So we need to move things along. Time is ticking. I have come into this council with 18 months to go in the term. I personally need to get things that I want to get up moving along, because in November, or probably before that, when we go into recess for the election, that's it. So I'm sorry if I seem out of line with my fellow councillors, but when I'm getting feedback from the community that this is a project that seems to be up in the ether and not getting acted on, then I felt that this motion was appropriate, without trying to make aspersions that anyone hadn't done anything or other councillors or councils hadn't done what they should have. I know, I have been a councillor before. I know the difficulty of working with state bodies like Big Track, etc. And I pay tribute to the work that's been done to get that land put into council ownership. It's very exciting to have that land there, but this is one of the projects that could be done. It's probably a $1 million, $1.5 million type of project, and it needs to be moved ahead quickly. So there you are. I take offence at Councillor King. I think it was quite a childish remark.
Time's up there, Councillor Kelly. All right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Okay.
The block.
Just had the point of order raised before about people going against personalities, not motions. The same can be said for you too, please.
You're calling a point of order on me?
No, I don't call a point of order, I just rule the orders. Okay, next one is the coolant heat vulnerability mapping. Councillor Kelly.
I would like to move that officers bring a report back to council on the Coolit project done by the CDGA and the usefulness of such aerial mapping to Swan Hill Rural City Council's planning for prioritising areas for cooling interventions and informing the following. Tree planting programs in both streets and parks, irrigation programs of open space, where to position shady walkways and cycleways, where to prioritise water-sensitive urban design for cooling, capital works, strategic planning and planning.
Do I have a second for that motion? Councillor McKay. Questions to clarify the motion, councillors? Councillor King?
Yeah, thank you. Question. Just like to know when the report that Councillor Kelly is referring to was done by the CBGA.
It was actually in the report. It was done in 2018,
okay,
5 years ago.
Thank you.
Any other questions at all, councillors? Councillor Jeffrey?
Just a question of the resources required. Is this something that council has staff at this point in time to do in, I guess, a timely manner? Or is it something that we would have to contract to or potentially plan for the next budget? I think there's 3 questions on that. Do we have the resources internally, or do we have to go externally next?
Through you, Mr Mayor. We'd have to have a look and see what was involved. Our GIS officer has recently announced his retirement, so internally we wouldn't have a real resource for the short term. Depending on the complexity of the process, we may have to outsource.
Ms. Green?
I'll just add to that. Just to be clear on what's being asked for, I don't think the councillor is asking for aerial mapping to be done. It's just the usefulness of having it done in the future. So our environment officer could do a brief report on what would be involved, and then the cost of doing that, because CBGA could provide us with that sort of information. So that's probably not too onerous. But that's my reading of the notice of motion.
Yes, that was the spirit.
Any other questions at all, councillors?
Yes,
Councillor Moore?
Who was our representative before me on the CBGA?
Me.
No, council's representative, but a councillor was a representative, which was Councillor McKay.
Yeah, that's
yes.
right.
Oh, sorry, before
Yes,
me.
but it was before my time though, this report.
Yeah, it was before your time. It was
Before
before
I
my
was
time. I've
elected.
never heard of it. Yeah,
No.
Anyway, yeah.
It was when I was the rep.
Yeah, so, all right.
Questions? Any other questions, councillors? Just in the report, Ms. Green, when I read the report, one of the recommendations was to hold a council forum to present the results of the project. Was that ever held?
So we weren't part of the project.
I know we weren't part of the project.
So
Yeah.
no, it wasn't held for us because we.
It was only held for those 10 municipalities that were involved.
Yeah.
Any other questions at all, councillors?
So I'll ask something of Ms. Green.
Yeah.
Could it be that this report could inquire of the progress of the Cool It project and whether it was used and useful in other municipalities, and whether they seem to be setting down a strategy for how councils could use that data? So it could be quite simple as far as inquiring about whether the project went ahead and was it used by councils as well, so that we can find out if it's relevant to us. Great, thank you.
There's no other questions. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor Kelly?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have an obligation to our community to work on the areas of our council plan that they have supported us to create. So one of the areas of our council plan is about climate change and climate change mitigation and adaptation. And there is an urgency to this work, as I said here before, our coming summers. We have to plan for cooling our city. We know that it's projected to, Swan Hill will have weather like Balranald by in the coming years, and it's only going to increase after that. So this project, we're a member of CVGA, we pay money to CVGA. They did this project back in 2018, and to be smart and effective and efficient with your actions, you need to have the information. So this project worked on aerial mapping of prioritising areas of heat. So I'm not sure if everyone's seen heat maps, but they can show up where it's hot and where it's not hot. So under a tree will be cooler than a road. It's quite obvious, but if you do it for your public areas, you'll be able to see where you need to prioritise. We've got limited funds. We need to put them into prioritised areas, and this will help us do that. So we can be smart, we can be effective, and we can do what our community needs us to do, which is be prepared if we want our city to be beautiful, livable, cool, for children, the elderly, to enable our lifestyle and active lifestyle. We need to work on cooling our city. Our city, Swan Hill, does have hot areas where there is a lot of roofs, tarmac, concrete. These are all much hotter than areas that have greenery, so we can prioritise them. So I just think this is a good bit of work that is totally in the remit of our Environment Officer, or we could seek funding to go out and get a contractor to do it. We could seek a grant to get a contractor to do this work for us. So therefore our coming works in regards to cooling, whether it's tree planting, whether it's irrigating open space, creating shady walkways and cycleways, water sensitive urban design, can be done in a smart way. The other 10 councils that were part of this project, they got this information. I agree with Councillor McKay, it would be good to know how they've used it. But I just think it's just logical to start doing this. I know this isn't, I think this is wise to do this work. It's obviously has the collective CVGA and probably many other regions in Victoria and in Australia have done this kind of work. It will inform our action, and I think it's incumbent upon us to assist in the coming years, especially future generations, to prepare for a warming climate. The thing with trees is you've got to plant them. They're going to take a while to grow. So unless we plant them soon, in 20 years, they're not going to be ready to create shade. So this may seem like I'm jumping the gun, but you can't just build a tree. You have to plant it and then let it grow. So it's urgent that we get this information and then we start doing this work strategically and wisely, so we can leave a legacy like our forefathers did for us in creating the trees that we have in Swan Hill, the elms and all the other beautiful trees that we have were planted by someone. And thank you to them. But we need now to do the work, to be strategic and do the same thing for our children and their children in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKay.
I think doing this sort of planning work and at least making this inquiry about how other strategies have been made in other towns is in agreement with our long-term vision of Swan Hill, which is to make it a beautiful and livable city, and this will contribute to that, which is, after all, it is in line with our council plan and our vision. Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers? Councillor Moore.
Yes, well, I'd like to speak against the motion. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
The sentiment's fine, again, but the fact that, again, it's an unbudgeted expenditure. It would have to be taken into account in future times. I feel that this is actually a largely redundant report in that the new Local Government Act has actually superseded a lot of the work of the Central Victorian Greenhouse Alliance, in that there's mandatory requirements of us now, and that's why it's in the council plan. We're already addressing this. It's already being actioned. We're already planting trees, and I don't think it's rocket science, but we plant trees where there aren't any. That's as simple as that. We can't plant trees where there already are. I believe our parks and gardens are doing a great job of actually assessing where to plant trees and cool as many areas as they possibly can and provide recreational areas. Councillor Kelly has just mentioned about all the trees that people have planted. I actually had a meeting yesterday with a couple of community groups who gave me a rundown of all the trees that these community groups had planted over the years around the town. It was community groups that planted, not council. Council didn't dictate you plant trees here, you plant trees there. Where we've tried to do that, our coffee with the councillor at Lake Boga just recently, local residents stopped trees being planted around the lake because it was going to ruin their vision. And in another area, the trees were planted a little bit too close together, so they had to pull some of them out so that they'd actually grow into big, strong, healthy trees. So what I'm saying is we're trying to disempower the community if we go ahead with this and say we've got to do this and we've got to do that. Let's work with our communities to actually get trees where the community wants them. There's a great little community down at Lake Boga planting trees everywhere. where they want them. I hadn't heard of the Coolett project in my time on CVJ. As I said, I think it's been largely superseded by the Local Government Act. It's all in everybody's council plans, but we actually do the best we can, plant as many trees as we can, and to mitigate the urban heat island effect. Just on heating, climate models have continually overstated temperature projections by at least 2 degrees. Whether we're going to heat up, I don't know. I can't see it. As I say, everything comes at a cost. We were spending $45,000 a year on trees. I did ask whether we are continuing to do that. I didn't actually get an answer from...
Half a minute left.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't know where we are with that now, but as I say, we were spending $45,000 a year on trees. I think, and I say, Parks and Gardens are doing a magnificent job in identifying spaces on their own in conjunction with the Director of Infrastructure. Let's empower the community to plant trees where they want to, work in conjunction with them. They'll even supply the trees. I think that's the way to go, rather than just dictating where they go. The work with CASB, the Council for Sustainability and Environment, work with the CVGA, and we'll continue to do that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey, did you?
I have to speak for the motion. In essence, what the motion is asking for is a report back to council on whether area mapping for Swan Hill City Council, similar to what the Coolett project would be beneficial. So, based on the questions asked, and something that the officer would be able to put together and get some feedback from the participating councils, I'm happy for that report to come back. It's not asking us to commit funds to doing area mapping as an example. It's just about bringing a report back. So I'm happy to, I'm interested to see the outcomes of that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just going to say I'd have difficulty in supporting this motion just at the moment, because we did move a previous motion at another meeting about similar issues, and it's not that we didn't support the concept of the plan and what needs to happen, but we just felt that it wasn't the right time at the moment, because we do have a 10-year plan and other priorities that we've identified over a period of time, and we'd have to move some of those out to actually probably support what needs to happen. So it's not that we don't think it's a good idea and that it should happen at some point, but just not at the moment.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Can I speak again?
No. You've already spoken, sorry.
Yeah,
Councillor King.
thank you. I'll speak against the motion because, again, my belief is that this work is already being undertaken both operationally and strategically by council officers, and I don't believe that a separate notice of motion is required. As Councillor Jeffrey pointed out in the earlier debate, notices of motion are to provide direction where there's already not currently direction. As Councillor Moore said, our Parks and Gardens team do a magnificent job of maintaining and enhancing the recreational areas of our municipality. Tree replacement and additions are currently part of our operational and capital budgets. Unfortunately, we just have to accept sometimes that strategic work takes time, along with overcoming the bureaucratic barriers such as government department land holdings. I think we'd all love to see walking and cycling tracks and trees everywhere on the former Golden Murray water channels through the town, but that type of work takes time. Same with VicTrack land. It just takes time to see visionary projects come to pass. So to digress, sparse council resources away from some of those long-term strategic projects to short-term objectives actually does nothing to enhance the long-term livability of our municipality. Tree planting, irrigation, active pathway connections are part of our council plan already and part of our strategic 2050 vision. So I won't support the motion because I don't believe it's required. Thank you.
Thank you. Wish to reply, Councillor Kelly?
Yes, please. Regardless of some of the negative things that have been said, I appreciate my fellow councillors' opinions. I will continue to be optimistic and proactive, and I believe that our community do want us to be leaders, to be proactive, to prepare for our futures, and this is far from a large strategic visionary project. This is really basic information that will help our community and will help our staff, and I think they'll probably be really happy to be have the guidance of this type of mapping. But as it says here, it's just a report on the Cool It project and the usefulness of such aerial mapping to Swan Hill for these things. It's not doing it. It's just a report on whether we could do the Cool It, a thing like the Cool It project, and whether it would be useful to us. It could, probably be very simple. It's unfortunate that we weren't part of this project, and I don't know why we weren't, but possibly we weren't a member of CVGA then, I don't know, but we were left out, and I feel that it's a shame we were left out, because what it means is that we now need to catch up. We need to catch up with other councils who are being informed by this type of information to prepare for cooling. We are a municipality that is in northwest Victoria. It is hot. It is going to be hotter. I find it, and many people find it, very hot. With electricity costs rising, people are going to have to use so much power to power their air conditioners in summer. We need to cool our city. We do not want to be laggards. We will not be thanked by the community now or the future if we are laggards. We will be left behind. I've just been in Canberra for the week learning a lot about things like this, and we need to catch up and be part of the wise planning and being realistic about what is happening. And it is true that Councillor Moore says it is the Victorian Local Government Act and also the other state government acts that are guiding us. But we have to do the action. Thank you.
Right.
I implore your support.
I will put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried.
Could I call for a division, please?
Right. Those in favour? Put your hand up. Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Kelly, Councillor McKay, Councillor McPhee. Those against? Councillor Young, Councillor Moore and Councillor King. Okay? Thank you. All right. Thanks, councillors. Section E, we have no foreshadowed items. Is there any urgent items not included in the agenda? No? We'll go on to councillor reports. Start off with the Deputy Mayor, Councillor King.
Thank you. Reports are on the board up there. I guess ones of note, it was great to be involved in the Murray River Group of Councils advocacy group that went to Canberra, acted on behalf of the Mayor there with the other Murray River Group of Councils. Several meetings as well documented in the press as to what we got up to, but really just advocating for our region and for people to realise that there is strength in numbers. The issues across the Murray River Group of Councils are very, very similar. And I guess having been in Canberra again last week at the ALGA conference, our issues and our concerns are very much the same across all of regional Australia. It was pretty apparent last week that there is a significant urban-rural divide. But rural municipalities are very much similar to ours in the issues that they're facing, and obviously a couple of other things up there. Great to get out with a couple of community events at Bedford and Lake Boga as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Sharon. Did you get mine? Yeah. Thank you. I think, yeah, the 16th of May, we had a joint dinner with councillors and directors at the Fed. I think everyone went to that, but I thought I'd put it in there. The 17th of May was IDHOP Day, looked at that. I think I got the name wrong here. I think it's called Food Next Door. I went up to that in Mildura. It's a concept where it's an initiative with a goal of relieving the suffering or distress suffered by newly arrived migrants and refugee groups, particularly those without access to land and living in rural and regional areas. So it's a farm, well, it's actually, it's out at Nichols Point, and I'll bring a report back about that another time, but it was really amazing and inspiring. So, Council Assembly, the biggest morning tea at the Swan Hill Community Comfort Centre, which was fun, and that's raising money for cancer, which was, there were a number of those morning teas across the municipality. There was an MAV briefing online about the budget on the 25th of May. I went to the ballet at the town hall, the Snow Queen, which I was just blown away by. I don't think I'd seen a ballet for 20 years or more, and now I'm a convert. And the town hall is just a splendid venue. On the 5th of June, I went to a Sustainable Living in the Mallee meeting. 6th of June, Council Assembly, went to the Residents and Ratepayers meeting, and look, it's really important to have a residents and ratepayers group, so I'm really happy to go along to those meetings. The Mayor was there too. 7th of June, Pental Island levy meeting. That was the first of those meetings with the North Central Catchment Management Authority, and they will be continuing in the next few months with Councillor, also Miss Johnson and Councillor Moore. 8th of June, I went on a tour of Robinvale, I called it, with Mayor McPhee, because it was a tour, but I actually just really accompanied him on his meetings up there, but that was really great. I really feel like I have a good sense now of the layout of Robinvale and the issues there, and met a few strategic, important people. I was hoping we got in the paper, Mayor McPhee. Did you think we did? We got a photo out front of the community centre, but not sure if John's put it in the paper. This is not really my council role. I attended the first day of the June Carnival, but it was quite a big thing for me to go to the races, because I probably haven't been there for 20 years either. And I went up to Canberra on the 12th to the 16th with our CEO Scott and Councillor King, and we're going to bring a report back about that at a future meeting. And I just put in there a couple of things I did in Canberra, because I tell you what, Canberra is a grand city and it has some incredible cultural facilities like the National Gallery of Australia. Actually didn't go to the National Gallery, did I write that? I said the National Museum of Australia. Anyway, I went to the National Museum of Australia, I went to the Canberra Arboretum, and I went to the National Portrait Gallery of Australia. So with the current projects that we've got on with our two buildings project, just visioning for how incredible it is to have these public facilities like museums and galleries and the beautiful architecture, and it really is important to have that cultural infrastructure in our it's great that we've got those projects on, and hopefully that going there will help me in my deliberations on upcoming decisions we're making about that. And the Arboretum, well, an Arboretum it's like a zoo for trees, so can you imagine how excited I was to be there? It's an incredible project. It's on this land, these hills around Canberra, where the bushfires came right in, burnt down all the pine forests, and what they've done is they've created this beautiful space. Were you there last year for the dinner at the
a couple of years ago?
A beautiful public space, shop, cafe, and then just a whole layout of trees. It was called the 100 Species for 100 Projects. Oh, anyway, it was incredible. So I highly recommend going there, and it was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKay.
I attended the Boundary Bend Progress Association meeting, the Nye District Action Group meeting, Swan Hill Incorporated meeting last night, which I am loving, and we had a meeting with Economic Development, Swan Hill Rural City, Sunraysia Mallee Ethnic Community Council, and our own local volunteers regarding the Asylum Seeker Humanitarian Project, and that was good. Thank you.
Councillor Young.
Just a bit of an update on the university centre that's being established in Swan Hill. The National and Central people are very impressed with the progress of what's happening, because the renovations and the upgrades are happening at the old police station, and that's very impressive. Go and have a look. Recruitment activities are now happening for the centre manager and admin support. It's anticipated that the centre will be open 5 days and possibly manned from 8 until 5. Students will be issued with cards to access into the facility after hours for study options, and it's linked into many different universities and study areas all around Australia. It'll be a big benefit to students who will be able to stay in the regions, continue to work and establish networks with other students who are undertaking similar areas of study. And it will also be a big relief to a lot of parents who are actually spending a lot of money sending kids away to only go to 2 lectures a week. So it's very impressive what's happening. I went to coffee with the councillor at the Beverford Tavern, and the issues were all put through the Coffee with the Councillor app that we've got. Lake Boga Inc. meeting, they're very pleased with that the beautification to the entrance to town is likely to be happening. I went to the Lake Boga Community Planning meeting, which is very well attended, and they had submissions from over 100 people, which is just amazing for our small communities. Swan Hill Races, that was a very successful event. It's a happy time for everyone, and it's got huge economic returns to the business and community. I went to the biggest morning tea at the Comfort Centre, and that's about it.
Thank you.
Nothing to report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
85th Century Victorian Greenhouse Alliance Board meeting, 56th Agribusiness Advisory Committee meeting, 56th Coffee with the Councillor in Lake Boga, 7th to 6th Pemple Island Levy Bank Committee with the North Central Catchment Management Authority, who incidentally are trying to wash their hands of the responsibility for that levy. 8th to 6th Audit and Risk Committee, 19th to 6th Marley's Place photo up there, and of course 19th to 6th also the McCallum Street, a meeting with service clubs in the McCallum Street Lineal Park, and their eagerness to continue their cooperation with council there with the seats that they've already got there, and we wanted to get in there to get a tree planting and other native grasses there. It sounded like they wanted, my words, an arboretum of natural, of native species along that lineal park. And it was just an idea that they were thinking of. Anyway, community, they were wondering why, since Ms. Betko had left the position, that we hadn't actually, everything had sort of fallen through the cracks, and the relationship they hadn't continued on. So anyway, I raised that with the CEO there for that lineal park, which is one of our development projects, which will incorporate tree planting and a lot of other things that Jacinta Chaplin is doing as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, all the things I attended will be in the minutes. But just a couple, I'll only highlight a couple, don't need to go through all of them. Just the anniversaries this last month was quite interesting. We had the Inner Wheel Club, who is the Inner Wheel of Rotary. It's the women behind Rotary. Basically, they had their 60th anniversary, which is well done. The Vietnam Veterans of Swan Hill was their 30th anniversary just gone. And the Girl Guides of Swan Hill had the 100th anniversary. So I think all those groups are all volunteer groups, and for them to last that long in those days is amazing. So congratulations to all those groups, and you can read the minutes of everything else that we do. So thank you. All right.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, just I saw there that you attended Mully Pierce calling out the Cafe Mully,
Yep.
which I think is
There
wanted
will
to
be
say that I wasn't able to get there,
Yeah.
but it,
Look, in
it looks
relation
like
to-
everyone's really happy about it, and it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Look, it is very well accepted within the community, and we are looking at planning an official opening when the weather's better around September sometime, but the councils will be made informed of that when it happens.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we have an in-camera item, and this item has been considered in camera in accordance with section 318 of the Local Government Acts 2020 on the grounds that the item concerns council business information, being information that would prejudice the council's position in commercial negotiations if prematurely released. So that's just the information of those watching online while we're going to camera. Can I have a motion that we go? Thank you, Councillor King. Seconded, Councillor Kelly. All in favour? Carried. Just remain seated while we stop the live stream. Right, we'll go for a live stream. Okay, thanks to the, if any audience stayed around for the finish of the live stream, I shall now close the meeting at 4:30 p.m. Thanks for the close. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers.
Look,
Just wait till the live stream finishes, councillors, please.